Hey guys, so I'm going to be doing a video response to the Amazing Atheist's own video, Feminism versus Freedom of Speech. And as with my latest videos that I've been doing, I'm going to be basically playing his video and commenting alongside of it. So if you haven't watched his video yet, I suggest you do that first. The visuals are important in here, so I really suggest that people watch his video before watching mine. Alright, let's go.
Recently, there was a bit of a fiasco at the University of Toronto when a group of radical feminists pulled a fire alarm in order to stop a men's rights seminar in progress at the university.
So I really think that's funny. So the men's rights activists, they're just men's rights activists. But the feminists, they're radical feminists. You know? You have to add all these unnecessary descriptors to bolster your argument. But actually, a good argument, if you can make it well enough, you don't need that, right? We can see for ourselves, based on the evidence that you provide, whether these feminists are radical feminists. And I'm going to hope to try to prove, using evidence, that these guys aren't radical and that their point of view is understandable. And if you can rebut my actual evidence, I'd love to see that. But don't, make these stupid arguments, where you just add these descriptors that don't add anything to your overall arguments.
You can see a large group of protesters yelling in the hallway just outside the MRA group's meeting, while campus security muddles around like a lost child, powerless to get them to stop disrupting. The fire alarm then goes off and the feminists cheer like banshees, ecstatic that they've used bully tactics to silence the opposing point of view.
So again, cheering like banshees, is that really necessary? Just make your argument. So to me, they sounded like women cheering there. To you, they sounded like banshees. But I've heard women cheering like that in other contexts, and they sound the same. So I guess women in general to you sound like banshees, right? According to your own words, right? Women in general sound like banshees to you when they cheer. Because to me, they sounded like regular women there, Just like all women cheer, they cheered, right? So if you don't like me making those kind of arguments, you can understand my not liking you making those kind of arguments, right? So just make it, use evidence, and stick to the facts. And leave this kind of nonsense out of it, because I'm going to know how to attack you for it and make you look like an asshole.
Yeah! Fuck freedom of speech! Yeah! Fuck opposing points of view! Woo!
So, right now, it seems like if you knew the full context, it would appear as if these women are just here because they hate the men's rights movement, right? And that's not true, right? They're actually here protesting against a specific person who was giving a speech at this rally and who said something very specific and to them very specifically offensive, right? That's why they're here in their own words. But you're not hearing their own words. You're hearing the Amazing Atheist interpretation of their own words, which is he thinks they're here because they seem to hate all men, right? Fuck opposing points of view. That's why they're here. They just hate opposing points of view. Is there not a specific point of view that they're so emotionally hurt by that they would have to do something like this? I am sympathetic to the idea that we need to protect freedom of speech, right? And obviously, I'm sympathetic to that. So is everyone. And he's banking on your prior sympathy to that point of view without even bothering to understand the context of why they're arguing here, right? So I'm going to ask you a question, okay? Can you understand a time where you would be sympathetic to the other side, right? Can you be sympathetic to someone who's trying to stop someone's freedom of speech, right? And I can pull up a point in history where this happened, and I'm sure it will give you a better understanding of what it's like to be on the other side, where you're hurt by someone's freedom of speech. Even though it's sacred, even though it's wrong to disrupt it, even though it's wrong to stop it, you can still understand where they're coming from when they try to stop it, right? So there's this very famous case in history where this particular man named what's his name? Clarence Brandenburg, who was a member of the Ku Klux Klan. He was a leader of the Ku Klux Klan, and he wanted to have a KKK rally in Hamilton County in Cincinnati, Ohio, right? So there they would be wearing hoods, they would be burning crosses, they would be saying the N-words, they'd be talking against the Jews, and that's in their freedom of speech, right? That's in their freedom of speech. And yet, they were not allowed to do so. They were convicted for doing this and fined some money, and had to go and was convicted and sent to jail for that. But of course, that's his protected speech under the Constitution, and the Supreme Court eventually overturned his conviction and said, hey, you know what? Even though his speech is awful, even though it sucks, it's his right and he has a right to do it. Now, I'm only bringing this up for one point. Can you understand where these people are coming from when they try to stop this horrible KKK members' freedom of speech, right? They're emotionally hurt by this. It's something that is awful to them, and they go to these drastic and wrong measures to try and stop his freedom of speech. So can you understand why, in a particular context, it would be understandable, even though it's wrong for these women to pull the fire alarm, that it can be understandable that they got so hurt that they tried to stop these people's freedom of speech. But you never know that, right? You never know that there's some specific person that they're arguing against, that specific person said something awful that they're arguing against, and that's why they pull that fire alarm, right? For you, what you think is, because he never gave the full context, right, is that these people just hate men's rights, right? And that's awful, right? That's not what happened. You know, you can argue against what they stand for, but at least hear what they have to say, right? And you can argue against that. Don't make up your own position and argue against that fake straw man argument, right? They're not against opposing points of view. When did they say that? Show me a clip where these feminists, these particular feminists, say they are against other people's points of view. And then you can make that argument that you just made. Fuck opposing points of view. That'd be a good imitation of what they're saying if that's what they said. But they're not. They don't believe that. You're just making that up.
The confrontation continued outside as the fire trucks showed up full of firefighters whose time has been wasted by these mindless cackling cunts. Now,
mindless cackling cunts. And I'm going to tell you the context for why they did this, and understand that they're calling these people who are hurt by something very legitimate, that he's calling them mindless cackling cunts. Right? And I'm going to explain in a few minutes when the time comes in the video to explain why these women are here and exactly what they're protesting. But just keep this in mind, that he's just insulting people without even addressing why they're here.
I should warn you guys that the person I'm about to show you is the least likable person ever.
Okay, I'm going to warn you guys to actually listen to what this person has to say. The words that actually come out of her mouth. Because that's what I'm concerned with. This guy's concerned with what she looks like, what she sounds like, her voice, her anger, you know, how annoying she is. What I care about is the words that come out of her mouth. Do they make sense? Are they reasonable? Is it something that he would support? Okay, so that's my warning to you guys.
Like, you will become nauseous. If you've eaten recently, I guarantee you that you need to go to the other, pause the video, pause it, go to the other room, get a bucket, get a container, set it on your lap.
So what about her makes her nauseous? For him, it's the way she looks and the way she sounds. But this guy makes me nauseous because of the words that he says. The arguments that he makes are so awful, they make me nauseous. You know, so this guy needs to know the logical fallacy of what he's doing. Arguments stand and fall on their own merits regardless of who says them. Okay, it's the words that matter, not how you say them.
There's a good chance you will vomit. Roll the clip.
If you shut the fuck up and let me read my list, there's the fucking proof.
And so I obviously can't like argue that side.
So, number one, shut the fuck up for a second. Feminists do not want you to lose custody of your children. The assumption that women are naturally part of
And we don't
patriarchy.
Oh, I like her!
Okay, so what does he not like about her? That she said, shut the fuck up. What, he's never said shut the fuck up before? You know, he has a horrible personality. You're telling me you have an excellent personality? You know, give me a break, you know? Like, we know who you are, you know? But the point of watching the Amazing Atheist videos is we don't judge him by what he does in his own private life when he sticks a banana up his ass, right? That's none of our business, right? We judge him by words that come out of his mouth, by the arguments he makes, right? Why can't we use the same standard for the person you're arguing against, right? So she's annoying. But what exactly did she say, right? She said that we being feminists, don't want you being men, we don't want you to lose custody rights of your children. Because the assumption that women are better caregivers is part of patriarchy, right? So again, this shows that women are fighting for men's rights by fighting for women's equality. By giving women more rights, they're also giving them more responsibility, right? So they're fighting back against the gender stereotypes, right? That's what that statement said. And funnily enough, that's a statement he agrees with. That's a statement that the men's rights activists are fighting for, right? If you look at men's rights issues, one of them is that men lose custody rights, right? So she basically said a point that supports the men's rights activists, something that they should be fighting for together, right? This is a point that feminists and men's rights activists should be fighting for together. But he ignores it completely to focus on her face and her demeanor, right? And you expect feminists not to get mad, you know? Like, how? Like, I am getting so mad. You know, if my words were ignored for you to focus on what I look like, of course I'd be pissed off. You know, of course anybody would do that. So that's what happens to them. You know, you call them bitches. You know, instead of listening to what they have to say, you know, you point to the fact that they look awful saying it, and that's not important, right? If you actually care about the truth, it's not important, right? So what's really interesting and what I find really funny actually is that this woman is on multiple MRA videos where she's on like the what's it called, the clip, I guess, the clip art or something, you know, the thing that everyone sees when they click on the video, right? She's on multiple videos like that. She's become the face of feminism's bitchery, right? But she actually said something extremely reasonable and something that not only does he agree with, that the Amazing Atheist agrees with, but it contradicts what he says women stand for. Contradicts what he says feminists stand for, right? He said in previous videos that feminists fight only for women's rights issues. They don't fight for men's rights issues. Here is a clear example of a feminist contradicting that. And when he's faced with that fact, when he's faced with that very clear fact and evidence, he chooses to ignore it. Okay? Because he has something else to pick on. Does that sound like an honest person to you? Does that sound like someone who cares about men's rights issues? Not to me.
Isn't she pleasant? She seems like the kind of girl that, you know, she'd go to a restaurant and order her sandwich with extra mustard, and then they'd bring it to her, and she'd take a bite, and she'd throw it across the room and be like, I told you no mustard on this!
Who cares?
I like the part in the video where she leans in, like, at the end, where she's like, get it, dumbass!
No, I know you're trying to be funny, but she's making a very serious point, which you said doesn't exist on their side, which you completely ignored. You know, if you made a serious rebuttal to that and then made fun of her demeanor, maybe. I'll be okay with that. But at least then I know you actually addressed the shit that she's saying. Okay? And you have not. You have literally not addressed what they stand for. You know, they're shouting in there. You know, she's shouting, she's speaking, and you're ignoring it. So what's the difference between you and these people stopping, you know, their freedom of speech? You're not listening to her. You're not actually addressing what she's saying. What's the point of her freedom of speech if no one's listening?
Let's take a look at the platform of the group being protested, shall we? The name of the group is CAFE, Canadian Association for Equality. Their website is equalitycanada.com, and you'd be hard-pressed to find anything misogynistic on their website.
Okay, so the point to make here is the women are not protesting the platform, right? They never said anywhere that they dislike the platform. They do not point to anything in the platform that they dislike. They are actually against a very particular person who said some very misogynistic things from their point of view, and they're protesting that person. They're not protesting the platform. So when you bring up the platform, you're not addressing what these women are saying. You're making up your own argument that you're fighting for. You know, they're not there. You know, they never said anything about the platform, right? So you don't need to defend the platform, but they never attacked it. So we're going to spend several minutes of him defending a platform that no one attacked.
That's the crazy thing. Listen to the charter of this company. 1. To advance education by providing workshops, seminars, conferences, debates, and lectures on topics relating to equality, diversity, human rights issues, especially on gender equality. 2. To provide a platform for the collaboration of existing organizations interested in the topic of equality, diversity, and human rights issues. 3. To undertake consciousness-raising outreach activities, especially in the areas of gender equality routinely ignored. 4. Human rights issues, especially on gender equality. 5. To actively engage equality rights have been denied. Equality, 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 gender equality, gender equality, gender equality. You can see why the feminists don't like this fucking organization. Gender equality? The feminists are like, that shit was so 1920s. Don't you know we got a new platform now? Female supremacy.
Okay, where was that written down? Right? So we have to base what the MRA believe based on what's written in their platform. But for the woman, he just makes up their platform. You know, oh, they believe in we believe in female supremacy. Where's that written down? Have feminists said they believe in female supremacy? Where's that written down? You know, and what's funny is he follows that up with a shh, which I'll show you. So that's what they really believe, but it's not written down anywhere, is what he's trying to say, right? We believe in female supremacy. Shh. You know, we don't want people to know that we believe in female supremacy, but we're supposed to accept what's written down on the MRA. Okay? They're not saying shh for anything. They just tell the truth. What's written there, that's what they believe. But the feminists, you know, they believe in female supremacy. And where's that on any platform? Okay, so I just randomly Googled, you know, I found a feminist group, Feminist Majority Foundation. And I'm going to read what says on their platform, right? The Feminist Majority Foundation, which is founded in 1987, is a cutting-edge organization dedicated to women's equality, reproductive health, and non-violence. In all spheres, FMF utilizes research and action to empower women economically, socially, and politically. Our organization believes that feminists, both women and men, girls and boys, are the majority, but that this majority needs to be empowered. Now tell me, where in that does it say they believe in feminist supremacy? Right? It doesn't say it there. Right? So when you look at a feminist platform, then they believe in shit in secret. But when it's a men's rights platform, you have to take it at its word. You know? So you're not even playing the same game. You're playing by completely different rules. You know? You want us to play by completely different rules for you, and you want us to play for completely different rules for the feminists. Right? At least have the same standards so we can think that at least you're pretending to be honest. Okay? Because this just sounds like projection.
I mean, does this group sound radical to anyone? I mean, okay, the feminist argument is that this is just their safe-sounding front, but if you really dig deeper into the organization, you'll find the scathing misogyny. Well, I have dug deeper, and I invite other people to do so as well. Equality...
Okay, so I've dug deeper, and it took me 5 minutes, right, to find out why these women are at that particular event in Toronto, that particular day, protesting. And basically, they were protesting this one particular guy who was giving a speech there. His name is Dr. Warren Farrell, who, not in that event, but in books that he wrote, said some things that can be deemed as rape apology. Right? Now, you don't have to agree with that, right? You can argue against that. You know, you can say, hey, this particular guy is not a rape apologist. You know, here's the context or what he said. Here's why he said it's not rape apology. You can make that argument and I would listen to it. But you didn't make that argument. You're basically pretending that their side doesn't exist, right? Why they're here. You know, this particular person that they're arguing against. That argument for you doesn't exist. They're just here because they hate men according to you. And that's not true. That's a false argument. That's a dishonest argument. They're here because they're arguing against a guy who says that it's okay to have sex with someone who says no but is saying yes with her body language, right? I'm paraphrasing here. And I might be wrong. You know, my context might be wrong. And you can disprove me, right? I'm happy to listen. And maybe these women are wrong, but you haven't even bothered to defend him yet. You know, you're just attacking them without even bothering to understand why they're angry, why they're upset. You know, if I found out that in this particular group that this dude who thinks that it's okay to have sex with women, even though they say no, because in his mind they're saying yes with their bodies, you know, with their body language, in his mind, even though they verbally say no, it's okay for you to continue to have sex with them. That sounds like rape to me, man. That sounds like rape to me. You know, you can convince me, you know, but I'd be pretty angry if somebody showed up and gave speeches like that, and you're giving money to hear this person speak. That would piss me off, right? So, first of all, you didn't address that, but that's also why they're here. That's why they got angry. That's why they tried to stop these people's freedom of speech. Again, I don't agree it's right. I don't think it's right to stop these men's freedom of speech, no matter who they have, whether they have KKK members, whether they have rape apologists, whether they have men who say it's okay to rape a woman when she says no, right? If they give a speech, I think they have the freedom of speech to have that, right? So they made a mistake by attempting to stop the rally, right? But at the same time, you can understand why they're upset, right? Maybe some of these women have been raped, you know? And this guy is like defending that proposition. You know, maybe these women said no, okay? And they're physically weaker. You can ask, you know, Thunderfoot. You know, he believes, you know, he's made an entire video, hashtag like a girl, where he talks about how women are weaker than men, right? So they would get raped, right? Because they're weaker, right? And that would be upsetting to them if somebody said it's okay to do that, right? Can you understand that? You know? So does that anger sound reasonable to you? It does to me. But maybe because I'm a little bit more empathetic than this asshole.
Canada.com. Go there, check it out for yourself. I challenge you to find something misogynistic in the group's literature, in their videos, anywhere.
Challenge accepted.
I think we all know who the fucking real radicals are at these events, and I've prepared a little clip show to help you out just in case you haven't figured it out yet.
What's funny is he's figured it out, and he hasn't even bothered to listen to what these women say, right? So in these clips, these women talk about the rape apology, right? That's why they're upset. You know, are you talking about it? Like, light bulbs didn't go off in his head when women are talking. When these women are like, "You're giving money." Let's wait until we hear it.
Let's see who the monster really is, Scoob.
You should be fucking ashamed of yourself. You're fucking scum. You are fucking scum. Fucking rape apologist, incest supporting, woman hating, fucking scum.
So, fucking rape apologist. She says it right there, right?
Fucking scum. Yeah, just another.
I just want to listen to someone else's opinion. I'm not even on a side here. I just listen
So he's like, I'm not even on a side, right? The man. I just want to listen to someone's opinion.
to as many people as I can.
You know what, though? Why would you pay money to fucking support a fucking rape apologist if you weren't fucking one?
Why would you pay money to support a rape apologist if you weren't one? Right? So she's making a reference to a dude who was giving a speech at this conference, right? And this dude paid money to listen to his point of view, right? Who's not on a side. And he's paying money to that side, right? If you were raped, let's say this woman, this woman who's really upset was raped, okay? Can you not understand her anger? You know? And she makes her argument right there. Why would you pay money to a rape apologist? And what's funny is the light bulbs don't go off in this guy's head, you know? in the amazing atheist head, you know? Why is she talking about rape apology? You know? And he doesn't do the research to figure out why she's talking about rape apology. That's her argument, right? That's why she's here. She's not here because she hates opposing points of view. It's because she believes one of these guys is a rape apologist. She might be wrong, but make that argument. Don't just insult her for being upset. Because one can understand why you would be upset in such a case. If you have a heart.
Well, it's fucking scum. Over-professional goals plus minimizing the unconventional and interpositional marriages end. The assumption I'm reading fuckface. I'm trying to fucking...
She's trying to read, dude, and these guys are interrupting her. You know, so like, yeah, they interrupted you, you interrupted them. She's like, I'm reading fuckface, and she's getting angry, but you never said fuckface in your life? You know, you're the nicest guy in the world, amazing atheist? You've never been a dick to anyone?
I'm letting everybody else hear it, okay? Not just for you, Mr. Entitled. The assumption is that...
Very good, you can yell. How about we talk rationally?
What's funny is they've been talking rationally. Like, they said they made actual arguments. The amazing atheist has access to these things. Doesn't even bother to address them. You know? Of course they're angry. You know? If people ignore what you say, wouldn't you be angry?
Why do we have to get off the campus? What are you so afraid of? Why, you know, what are you so afraid of in the discourse? I belong.
The KKK could have said that. You know? Why do they have to leave Cincinnati? What are you know, civil rights supporters afraid of? You know? No. Actually listen to their argument. They don't like you because you say awful things. They're not afraid of you. Unless you try to rape them.
Asking us that question. I helped build this university. So you're afraid of questions?
We're afraid of
That's not what
fucking
he said.
questions! We're afraid of you guys!
So you're afraid of
That's
questions?
what he said.
Why do we have to get off the campus? What are you so afraid of? Why, you know, what are you so afraid of in the discourse? I belong. You're asking us that question. I helped build this university. So you're afraid?
He said, you're asking us that question. Right? So something, you're asking us that question. Right? So he's basically putting it around at that, like, you did something and you're asking us that question. And he just hears the word question.
Questions.
So you're afraid of questions. That's not what he said, you asshole. You know? Like, they're not even listening. Right? Like, it's hard to listen, to be honest. But he's not saying I'm afraid of questions. You know? He didn't say you shouldn't be asking questions. You know? He said you're asking us that question. Right? Because he clearly is outraged by the fact that they would even ask such a question. And so he doesn't even bother to address what he says. You know?
So feminism having the only narrative is not fascist?
What? Feminism has the only area of speech? No. What? You know, the world isn't run by feminists. So understanding the context of these people bringing in someone who says it's okay to rape women who say no. Okay? That's what they believe. There's nothing wrong with that. Right? You wouldn't be upset when something like that happens. Of course you would be. Of course you would get this angry. You would get this outraged about it. And if you weren't this outraged about it, something is seriously wrong with you. You know? So that's why he doesn't talk about it. You know? You never hear the amazing atheist say, oh, these women are upset because they brought a guy who says rape apology things. You know? He never even mentions that. He just wants you to focus on how angry they are so they can look like bitches so you can hate feminism because you're not aware of the context. Well, I'm here to shed light on that.
Figured out modern day feminism. It's basically, there's a lot of these girls and women who are completely unlikable cunts, who are shrill and annoying and evil. And they think that no one likes them because they're women.
What? They gave a reason. You know, that's a thing. It's like they're giving reasons. You know, in this own video, in his own video, right? They gave a reason for why they support men's rights, and they gave a reason for why they're attending this particular conference and what they're particularly against. The guy doesn't address it. So,
but really, no one likes them because they're horrible fucking people.
So he's just addressing, they're shrill, they're annoying, he makes faces like, you know? But he never addresses their argument. And he just calls them horrible people. You wouldn't get angry if that happened to you? Of course you would, right?
And then people see that shit and we're even more like, keep that shit the fuck.
I mean, you have like that tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and you're making a fake argument, a false argument, where you're portraying these feminists a certain way. And of course, people who are not completely aware of the context of why they're there, yeah, of course they'd be turned off by it. You know, I wasn't happy to see them like this until I actually read the context. You know, because you don't portray the full context, right? So you're dishonest, dude. You know? Of course people are going to get angry at these feminists. People lied, you know, about me. Yeah, they could get angry at me if they made people made stuff
away from me. And that just strengthens their victim complex. It just, you know, validates it in their minds. Like, see how everyone hates us? That's proof that women are oppressed. No, women are not oppressed. Horrible, evil, cackling bitch.
So women are not oppressed. It's funny because he says he made another video, Failure of Feminism, where he says women have legitimate grievances. Now he's saying women are not oppressed. That doesn't make any sense, you know? Like, his arguments don't make any sense. Do women and men have legitimate grievances? Or are women just making everything up? Stick to one argument. The fact that he can't stick to one argument tells me that he doesn't give a shit about the truth.
Who silence dissent and treat everyone like shit. They're not liked. It's not.
You're not treating people like shit, dude? You never treated anyone like shit? Are you completely likable? Does that even matter? You know? Who cares about when someone's liked or not? What's their argument? What is feminism about? What here about feminism have you addressed? Nothing. You're talking about how they look like, what they sound like, but you're not actually talking about what they stand for.
Women that we don't like, it's you. You understand? I'm glad we were able to figure this out. Now we can all just go back to living our lives. And, you know, feminism's over. The MRA thing is over. Let's forget about all this shit and let's just talk about gender equality. Let's just talk about gender equality without relating it to one gender or the other.
Oh, wow. Because I could have sworn that's what that woman did with the red hair did earlier in the video, and you just ignored it. And now you're talking like a smartass. Like, you're the one who's thinking about it, and feminists don't talk about that when they did. And you ignored it.
You know, you can't have gender equality if you're too busy focusing on women's issues or men's issues.
So she addressed both in that snippet in which you said she was an awful person. She talked about men's issues. You asshole.
These are human issues. Stop it. Stop the need.
Stop patronizing someone without even listening to them.
Needlessly divisive bullshit.
This is needlessly divisive. You're talking about what they sound like, what they look like, and you're not addressing their arguments.
I'm the amazing atheist.
Whatever, dude. Alright, I'm done here. That was fun.